My husband and I have been married for 9 years and have a son, 12, and 2 daughters, 8 and 6. I have a very demanding job and work long hours, so my sister watches our kids on weekdays because she works from home. The schedule is that I get the kids up and drop them off at my sister's house at 6:30 and then go to work. My sister feeds the kids breakfast and gets them to the bus stop. After school, the bus drops the kids off, and my sister gives them snacks and helps with homework until my husband picks them up at 5. I get home from work at 6:37. My sister and I are very close, and I'm extremely grateful to her. She loves and spoils my kids. She's basically like a third parent to them. I pay for all her groceries, and my kids help her around the house in return. On Monday, I got an urgent call from my husband after he picked up the kids. He said that I needed to leave work immediately so I could come home to have an emergency discussion with him. I panicked and rushed home because he wasn't answering any of my calls after he hung up. When I got home, my husband proceeded to dramatically tell me that my sister was gay. Apparently, when he got to her house, her girlfriend was there, and they kissed in front of him. I actually laughed when he told me this because my sister has been out since I was a teenager, and her girlfriend and she have been together for 3 years. He is claiming that he thought her girlfriend was just her friend, and that mentions of her being gay were just jokes. My sister's girlfriend doesn't come to a lot of family events because she travels for work, and our family doesn't really talk about her being gay that often. Still, I can't believe that he wouldn't have figured this out in the 13 years he's known her. It's been so long that I can't remember if I ever verbally told him that she's gay. And my husband said that he doesn't want her around the kids anymore because she will influence them and wouldn't explain what that meant. I told him that I wasn't going to cut my sister out, and he said I could still see her, but not the kids because they are too young. I asked what the hell he expected to do for childcare if we couldn't use my sister, and he suggested I take a week off work while we figure it out, which I absolutely cannot do. I didn't want to yell at him in front of the kids, so I said I was going to take a walk to calm down and we would discuss this later. When I got back, my daughters were crying and my son was upset. He told me that their father had told them they weren't allowed to see their aunt anymore because she was having personal issues. I blew up at my husband and told him that he was being bigoted and selfish and that I wasn't going to cut my kids off from their aunt, who loves them, because he was too stupid to notice that she's gay. Then I packed the kids up and went to stay with my sister. I have no idea what to do. I love my husband and I don't want a divorce, but there's no way I'm going to cut my sister off. I can't believe my husband didn't know she was gay, but I don't know why he would lie about this. He's never said or done anything hateful before. I know I shouldn't have yelled at him like that, but I was furious that he said that to the kids. Any advice would be appreciated because I'm at a complete loss here. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "Homophobia by itself is bad enough. Homophobia directed at your own flesh and blood is beyond tolerating. What's he going to do if one of your kids comes out gay?" I know it's a notorious Reddit response, but this time I think it's justified. Dump him now. In response, the original poster said, "I didn't even think of this. I feel like I didn't make it clear enough in my post, but if he turns out to be a bigot, I am 100% done with him. I'm just at a loss right now because this is so out of left field. I feel really guilty and stupid right now because I've been racking my brain trying to remember if he's shown signs of this, but I'm coming up empty." Another commenter asked, "How in the hell have you never had discussions about LGBTQI issues? You haven't discussed politics, bigotry, gender identity, sexual orientation before having kids, or has he hidden this all from you? Some serious introspection is needed if you've never discussed it, especially before kids. If he's been hiding it, then time to work out where it's come from, and if there is any likelihood of him leaving those views in the past, doesn't seem likely. One other thought, is it actually that he's trying to use this as an excuse to prevent you from working? Is it part of a coercive control attempt? Is there anything that's happened that might have triggered him to try to cut you off from the outside world? The original poster replied, I have talked about queer stuff with my kids before. They know about gay and trans people and being accepting of them. I've been with my husband so long that I can't remember if we ever discussed this kind of stuff before. I guess I just assumed he didn't have a problem because he's never had an issue with my sister. I asked my son, and he said his father hasn't brought up anything bigoted to him before. I think you're right, and I'm due for a deeper conversation about queer issues with my kids. Then another commenter asked, could he have an ulterior motive, like he wants you to be a stay-at-home mom and thought you'd buy into a contrived situation? The original poster responded, maybe? I would have said no before, but now I don't know. We had a fight a couple of months ago where he was mad because he didn't like how late I got home from work because he has to make dinner every night. But he dropped it, so I thought that was settled. I make more than him, and if I quit my job, we would probably lose our house. So I really question this logic. But then again, I don't understand his logic about my sister, so all bets are off. After reading the comments, the original poster added, after reading the comments, I think that unfortunately, you guys are right. This is so out of the blue that I was looking for reasons as to why he might not be a bigot, but I think he just is. If it comes down to him or my sister, I am choosing my sister. At this point, I am so upset with him that I don't know if I would take him back if he came begging on his knees. He said what he said, and he can't take that back. To answer some questions. We don't really talk about politics because he doesn't really engage. I will mention something, and he'll just respond, okay, or uh-huh. Our life has been so hectic lately that we don't have a ton of alone time together, and when we do, we don't talk about politics. We live in a pretty liberal area, and he's never expressed any right-wing beliefs to me before, so I never thought that he had any different views. My sister being gay doesn't come up that much. Her girlfriend isn't around us or our kids a ton, and my sister's sexuality isn't a topic of conversation because it's just something that is. Like, she's gay, and that's that, so it doesn't really get discussed. I talked to my sister, and she said that they don't really interact that much. When he comes to get the kids, he will usually just say hello and nothing more. He's been ignoring my calls and texts, so I'm going to go over to our house tomorrow when I know he's home and have a discussion with him. Thanks for all the advice. Now for the update 3 days later. It turns out a lot of you were right, and my husband was lying about not knowing my sister was gay. He wasn't answering any of my calls or texts, so I went over to the house when I knew he'd be there to talk. After we sat down, I said that the only way I would even begin to consider working this out was if he gave me the reason why he was suddenly acting like this, agreed to go to couples and individual therapy to work on his hurtful views, and apologized to me, the kids, and my sister. He started saying all the same stuff about my sister being a bad influence on the kids and not being in line with his moral compass. I got fed up and told him to cut the nonsense right now and tell me what was really going on, or I was going to walk out and he would never see me or his children again. I've never spoken to him like that before, and I think it rattled him because he spilled the whole story. Long story short, he's been having an affair for the past year. Now that I think about it, it makes sense. I thought that maybe he was pulling away from me, but I figured it was just stress from work and kids. He admitted that when he had to go into the office on weekends, it was just an excuse to see her. Sometimes he would take a half day at work to go and be with her until it's time for him to pick up the kids. In his words, he was neutral about my sister being gay until his girlfriend opened his eyes. Apparently, when he mentioned my sister to her, she was shocked and started sending him lots of podcasts and YouTube videos on the subject. So, for the past year, he's been falling down a right-wing rabbit hole, and I had no idea. He said that he knew I wouldn't accept his new beliefs, so he was forced to hide it from me. He also admitted that he's been wanting a divorce for a while, and not just because of the affair. After watching the videos and podcasts, he started to resent me because I'm not a traditional wife who stays at home to cook, clean, and take care of the kids so that he can relax after work. He said that seeing my sister kiss her girlfriend was the final straw because he realized the extent of what his children were being exposed to. So he pretended to not know about it and made it this giant issue. In his mind, this was the perfect solution because he could finally make me see things his way and become a stay-at-home mom, or I would divorce him, and he could come away looking like the good guy. Then, he said he's going for full custody to protect his kids. I'm not super proud of it, but I flipped out at him. I called him a lot of names and told him that it'd be a cold day in hell before he even got 50-50 custody. I said if he wants to talk to me again, he'll have to contact my lawyer. Then I stormed out before I could smack him or something. In all honesty, this is a total nightmare, and I feel like I'm partially to blame. 13 years together, and I didn't notice he was changing overnight. I didn't think he was the type to get sucked into this sort of thing, but I guess he's stupider than I thought. I also never expected him to be a cheater either, so maybe I didn't know him as well as I thought I did. On the other hand, the comments on my last post have made me do some thinking, and I realized I was not very happy in our marriage. A lot of people were asking what we even talk about, and the honest answer is we don't. We started dating when I was 19, and he was my second ever boyfriend. About a year in, I remember I was feeling unsure about our relationship, and then bam, I got pregnant with our son. It all happened so fast too. He proposed to me, and I said yes. We had never discussed marriage before, and looking back, I'm pretty sure I would have said no if I wasn't pregnant. We had a long engagement, but we were basically married right after because I moved in with him immediately to raise our son. God, I feel so stupid. I think I was pretty naive at the start of our relationship. I never thought to have any in-depth conversations about politics, family, and religion. I'm realizing now that I was mostly staying in the marriage because it felt easier than the alternative and better for my kids. I genuinely thought he was a good man and father. Now I'm remembering tons of different moments in our relationship that I brushed off and fights we had that all add up to a bigger picture. I think part of why I've been so frazzled and exhausted lately is because he was literally doing the bare minimum and leaving me and my sister to pick up the slack. I don't regret the marriage because it led to my kids, but I regret not seeing everything sooner and getting out. Right now, my kids are my number one priority. When I got back, I sat them down and we had a long conversation about their father, his views, and queer rights in general. I made it very clear that I would support them no matter what. I'm also looking at getting all three of them in counseling to help them deal with this. We are temporarily staying with my sister while I sort out the divorce. We have separate bank accounts, but I need to figure out how to sell the house because I don't think I can afford it alone, and he definitely can't. There are some townhomes opening up in my sister's neighborhood that I'm going to try for. So my kids can walk to her house. My sister has been so supportive during this entire ordeal. She and I had a long talk about everything with lots of hugging and crying. I feel awful for bringing a bigot around her, and I don't think I can ever repay her for all of the help and love she has given me and my children. She and her girlfriend have been helping out with the kids and the divorce stuff. Since her girlfriend is currently in town, I decided that I wanted me and the kids to get to know her better. So this weekend, we are all going to the museum and hopefully take my kids' minds off everything. What I'm most worried about is custody. I don't want my soon-to-be ex-husband and his girlfriend anywhere near my kids, but I'm not totally sure what to do. He's still their father, and I don't want to keep them from having a relationship. I'm going for full custody, but should I ban him from seeing them entirely? My son and older daughter are very upset with him. My son doesn't want to see him at all, and I'm not going to make him if he doesn't want to. I'm sorry that this is long and kind of rambly, but it feels nice to get my thoughts down. This whole situation has been overwhelming, so again, any advice going forward would be appreciated. I might update in the future after everything is settled to let you guys know how things are going. But in the meantime, I would like to thank you all for the helpful comments and messages. Now for some comments. One commenter says they are sorry this is happening to you and your kids. They hope you can get a good lawyer and therapist for everyone. Another commenter expresses their anger and frustration for your situation and wishes you strength. The original poster shared their thoughts on the situation. Wow, the audacity and hypocrisy. He has become a giant misogynistic POS with the typical stroke your ego narcissistic girlfriend that helped him see the light. That is quite laughable if it wasn't so tragic for you and your kids. I think you need to get an attorney ASAP and do what you can to, at a minimum, ban your husband's mistress from being around your kids. But absolutely go for full custody and force a sale of your home. I do think that you and the kids should move back into the house, and your husband should be the one to go if he can't hack it. I would argue that it is detrimental to be around such morally bankrupt individuals, adulterers, and bigots. Now, OP responded, I have an appointment with a lawyer on Monday. There is no way in hell I'm letting his mistress anywhere near my kids. I want to sell the house as soon as possible and get him out there. If he wants to be like this, he can go stay with her. I'm not sure about moving back into the house because I'm scared he'll show up when it's just me and the kids. I think my sister scares him a little, which is why he hasn't shown up to her house. Then, another commenter, Choco Penguin, shared their thoughts. This is wild if true. Your husband is a spineless moron if he's letting some side chick change his moral political views with right-wing propaganda. Men like him want a trad wife, but they don't make trad money. Did he even think far enough ahead to calculate how much he'd need to earn to single-handedly support a 5-person family? Or was his plan to pull himself up by his bootstraps? What's even crazier is that he's willing to give up his family for a side piece. Last I checked, having an affair, getting a divorce, and starting over with your mistress is not in the traditional family values handbook. Finally, OP replied, I still don't get his logic. If I quit my job, we would lose our house, so I don't understand what his plan was. I feel like an idiot for not seeing his true colors sooner. Am I the idiot for telling my sister to choose her happiness over her caregiver role? I'm a disabled 21-year-old male, living with my older sister who's 27. I've been a paraplegic since I was a kid due to an accident. Our remaining parent, our dad, is pretty old and sick. He's in an old folks' home, and my sister takes me to see him occasionally. My sister is pretty much my full-time carer. She has her own job, which she works to support both of us. And when she's not at her job, she's usually taking care of me. She's had a very serious boyfriend for 9 years. They've been in a relationship since she was 18. It's always been a very serious relationship as far as I can tell. He's a really good guy, and he's always been nice to me. He also hasn't shied away from offering financial help once in a while. I know my sister has always dreamt of marriage. We talk about it so much, she and I, ever since we were kids. We do play weddings. She would always imagine the day she would get married, spend hours looking at bridal dresses. Even as an adult, she would fantasize about getting married and spend a lot of time looking at bridal dresses, talking about her dream wedding and what kind of house she'd like to have. She had names picked out for the kids since she was a kid herself, and she's always stuck with those names. So yeah, she's always dreamed of getting married and having a family for a long time. Her current boyfriend has been with her for so long and has been so good to her, I figured he would always be the one to marry her, and I'd be happy for her. Finally, she'd have someone to take care of her instead of her having to take care of me all the time. Well, that all came crumbling down. She returned home one day a complete mess, crying and pouring her eyes out all over the place. She told me they'd broken up. It was over. She was so sad. Oh, so sad. It was heartbreaking to see. It was like a dagger in my heart to see her crying and upset like that. And I felt so useless because all I could offer were meaningless words. She wouldn't tell me why. I figured she just didn't want to talk about it. After a few days, she still didn't want to talk about it. She was still incredibly upset, crying a lot. I told her I'm her brother. I may be physically disabled, but my heart and mind still work perfectly. She can talk to me about anything. Very reluctantly and with pushing, she opened up about it. She told me her boyfriend had proposed to her. I told her that's excellent. Why did they break up? She had always wanted to get married and had been waiting years for this. She told me they had talked about it, and her boyfriend wanted her to move in with him. They would find a separate carer for me to look after. They would still see me occasionally, but I would not visit them. And my sister would no longer be my carer at all. My sister told me she couldn't accept that, and that was the offer on the table as her boyfriend wanted it. She said she couldn't accept it. They couldn't reconcile their different wants, and they broke up. I told her she's crazy. She should have chosen her boyfriend. I know she loved him so much, and he was crazy about her. She should have gone and gotten married. She can't stay tied to me forever. She should live her own life and have her own family. She was still crying heavily, and she told me she realized that she would never be able to have that. All that stuff she wanted as a kid, to be a bride, have a wedding, have a family, none of it would ever happen. She would be taking care of me forever. I insisted to her, telling her she didn't need to take care of me forever. She should live her own life. She said no, that's what she wants. That's the way it has to be. She would have it no other way. When I kept insisting, she said no, that's it. She's in charge, she makes her own life decisions, and I should stop telling her how to live her life. She got angry at me, and I quickly apologized. She said it's okay, but I could tell she was really upset and in a bad mood. Why is she doing this to herself? I don't understand. Doesn't she see that I don't want her to sacrifice herself like this? Why did she just give up her boyfriend of 9 years like that? She loved him so much, and he loved her. So why did she just push him away like that? Why is she hurting herself like that? I don't want her to be hurting herself just for my sake. I never asked her to make this sacrifice of herself. I told her I wouldn't mind getting another carer for me. She said no. It's her. It has to be her. It's her job. It's her duty to me and to our family. She has to take care of me always. She wouldn't have it any other way, no matter how much I tried to reason. I hate myself so much right now. I've never hated being disabled more than right now in my life. I feel like a baby or something, like a useless animal. I feel like a ball and chain, like a burden tying her down to the ground and preventing her from living her own life. All I want her to do is to be happy and live her life and be happy and beautiful on her wedding day, like she's always wanted, not stuck forever taking care of her disabled brother. I wish I could just die to free her of her burden. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't seriously considered just ending the life of myself so she could finally be free and pursue her own life. I'm not just saying that, I'm serious. I know she'd mourn me for a while, even a few years. But after that, she'd move on and get married and live her life like she's always wanted. It might be the only way she ever knows true happiness. I tried to convince her, but she seems determined to bog herself down like this. I don't understand. She's not being reasonable. She's not looking out for what's best for herself. Why is she doing this? How can I get her to focus on herself and her own life? Please, guys, help me out. How can I talk some sense into her? How can I convince her to put her needs ahead of my own and to go focus on her life mainly so she can live the life she's always wanted instead of being chained down to me? How can I convince her of this? Please help. I feel so desperate and sad for her. Now for a few important comments. A commenter suggested contacting a social worker to work as a mediator between the two of you so that you can get the care you need but still maintain a relationship with her in which she is just your sister, not your carer. Absolutely, there are many options. I discussed it with her and told her I could easily find programs that would provide a carer, albeit with added expenses. So my sister no longer has to be my carer and she can go and live her own life. She wasn't interested. She is absolutely stubborn and determined. She seems to have it stuck in her head that she has to be my carer permanently. I don't know why. Now for the update. Okay, so this is an update to the post I made 2 nights ago. I just want to first of all say thank you so much to all those of you who posted extremely kind and heartwarming comments. That was amazing of you. Thank you so much. I'm also feeling much better now. I understand things much clearer and talked it over with my sister. It seems I was confused, and in the heat of the moment, there was a lot of misunderstanding. I have talked it all over with my sister, and we are both feeling much better and brighter now. and we agree things may have turned out for the best. I now realize, after my sister explained it to me, that he was not right for her, even though they had been together so long. I guess the length of their relationship had left me with a false impression. Firstly, as my sister explained it, it seems he didn't say I couldn't visit at all, as I had thought she meant, but that I just couldn't visit whenever I wanted to. They'd set times and schedules for when I could visit to ensure I wasn't over all the time interrupting and interfering with their lives. However, it seems my sister didn't like this at all. She said she realized her boyfriend had a problem with me and wanted to place some distance between her and me, and she wasn't okay with that at all. I told her I thought she loved him. She said she thought she did too, but she knows her priorities in life, and she is old enough and mature enough to be able to decide what she wants from life and what her priorities are. I told her I thought she'd always wanted to get married and have children and a family ever since she was young. She explained to me she still does to a certain extent, but only if the conditions are right. She said that she was a different person when she was younger. Now that she's older, her ideals and priorities had changed. She said that if she does get married, it's basically like what one commenter described as a package deal. I'd have to be included in the family too, and I'd have to live with them and be part of their family full time. She said if any potential husband couldn't accept that, then he could get stuffed, and she didn't want him. That's basically what she thinks of her now ex-boyfriend, and she said she feels much more positive about her future now that he's gone. She said while she was with him, she was always feeling unsure about what the future held in relation to her and me. But now that she's made her firm decision, she knows she'll never let go of me. I asked her, what if this means that she'll never get married? What if it means that she never ends up finding a guy who's okay with all this and is willing to settle down with her with me in the fray? She said, if that's the case, then so be it. As she explained it, she basically said, I'm her family now. I exist, and I'm the most important thing to her. She won't sacrifice me for a hypothetical husband and hypothetical children who don't yet exist, but may one day. She said priority number one for her will always be me and taking care of me throughout my life and disability. She couldn't imagine living her life without it. I told her, but didn't she feel she was severely limiting herself by chaining herself to me? Didn't she feel she was severely restricting her opportunities in life and what she could become? She explained that her years with me and taking care of me had helped form part of her identity. Taking care of me now is part of her identity and character. It's one of the things she lives for. I found that amazing. But she said she could have it no other way. I provide to her just as much as she provides to me, she said, and perhaps even more. I told her she was exaggerating, but she insisted it was absolutely true. She explained how the mere fact of her looking after me and her taking care of me day in, day out brings so much joy and happiness to her life. She doesn't know how she could ever live without it. And to her, it's so much more important than the possibility of having a husband or children. I found it difficult to wrap my head around that. I joked that I really can't imagine that it's always that fun, especially when she's, say, wiping shoot from my butt or something. She just laughed and explained how sometimes something that can superficially seem gross, disgusting, or painful can still be beautiful and cherished when you look at the love involved. She used the example of a mother giving birth. After 9 months of sickness and swollen body, she has her body ripped open, there's blood everywhere, screaming and crying, and it's the most intense physical pain of her life. But at the end of it all, it's still beautiful because it's an act of love, and she endures all that pain to bring to life someone whom she will love forever. So yes, even acts like wiping shoot from my butt, as gross and disgusting as it may seem to some, is in of itself an act of love and an example of how much she, as a sister, cherishes me as her brother, and the lengths she will go to as a result of that relationship. And that, I think, is beautiful and true love. So now I have a completely new outlook on her and our life. It's much more positive, and I no longer see myself as a burden or a chain. She helped me realize my own self-worth and value. I'm not just some disabled guy in a wheelchair that needs help. I'm a brother, and I provide love, friendship, and value to this amazing, beautiful, kind-hearted woman I am so proud to call my sister. I no longer have any thoughts about ending my life at all, because I realize how much I am worth to her, and how much I mean to her, and how much it would hurt her if I do that. And I could never bear to do that. So I just thought I'd share that update with you all after all those incredibly warm and supportive comments you gave me were so uplifting. I can honestly say, even though I may be physically disabled, I consider myself to have this amazing gift because I'm blessed with love. And this love is the most amazing thing in the world. I can't imagine living without it. Thank you all so very, very much. Am I the idiot for wanting to escape my parents' nomadic circus and find a real home? My parents decided when I was only around 7 years old, far too young to get an opinion on anything, to pack us up and move into an RV to travel around the US. My dad works online and my mom makes content online. She's not huge by any means, but big enough that we get recognized sometimes, and big enough that I've had a camera shoved in my face for as long as I can remember. For my privacy's sake, I won't say anything else on that, and I'm using a throwaway account because I've gotten enough attention already, and I'm sick of it. I sleep in a tiny bunk bed that I outgrew years ago, and the other bunk is the only space I have to put anything I own. I don't even have a room, just a curtain, and thank God I'm an only child, or else I would have to share the small space I have already. I was homeschooled for most of my education, and then switched to online school at my own insistence for high school. I'm an 18-year-old girl. I don't have a single friend in person because the longest I've ever stayed anywhere is a month. I don't have a job and no way to get one because of not being stationary unless I find one online, which also means I have no way to move out and get away from them. I've had conversations with them about all of this countless times, and they are so delusional and genuinely believe that a nomadic existence is the best way to live. So why would I ever need anything else? I hate them for treating me like some pet they can just drag along in their plans rather than their child. I hate traveling, I don't like heat, I hate dealing with bugs, and I'm so sick of hiking. I can't wait for the day that I finally figure out a way to get away from them with their morning hikes and cameras in my face. I've traveled around the US, yeah, but God forbid I want to have a normal life, go to college, or maybe even make some friends. That's asking too much. Now for some of the comments. When asked if there was any other family she could stay with, she said, "Not that I know of, unfortunately. Currently, my plan is to try to figure out some sort of income online and save up so I can get an apartment. I'm talking with someone I've known online for a long time about maybe being roommates to help with costs for both of us." Another commenter suggested going to college as a way out, and she replied, "I'm definitely looking into it, but I'm worried about it because with the way I was homeschooled, I was very behind academically and struggled a lot in high school. I was just happy I was able to do an actual online high school program rather than homeschooling." Someone else mentioned the irony of creating content about getting away from her parents, and she responded, "Honestly, I've considered it just for the purpose of spreading awareness, but it didn't seem smart to me for a few reasons. Firstly, it didn't seem like a long-term solution. I don't think the content would be all that interesting. Once my story is told, there isn't any other real content there. There are only so many times you can talk about the same thing without it getting repetitive and boring people. Plus, I would have to be in a stable position enough to feel comfortable talking about it and have an out just in case things went sideways. But more importantly, I've already had my life plastered onto the internet from such a young age. I don't think it's worth giving up the one aspect of my life that hasn't been published publicly." Now for the update. Hello, barely over a week ago, I made a post talking about my very negative experience living in an RV with my parents for around 10 years now. Despite it being such a short time since I've posted, a lot has changed for me since then. I don't know how many people here would be interested in an update on my situation, but I know quite a few people were very concerned and would probably appreciate an update, so here it is. I had a lot of people give me really helpful advice, resources, as well as even offers to try to help personally, some being questionable, admittedly, but a majority being genuinely concerned, wanting to try to help, and I very much appreciate that. It was slightly overwhelming, to be honest, and I ended up not responding to a lot of people, so you'll all have to forgive me for that. But even if I didn't respond much, I have been doing research on a lot of the information people gave me. Something that stood out to me was people asking if I had any family I could stay with, to which I had to respond, not that I know of, because I don't have anyone on my dad's side of the family, and my mom is strictly no contact with her family. I did not know if they were alive, if they cut her off, if she cut them off, or even any details about them, and my mom had never wanted to talk about it. What information I did have was my mom's maiden name, which is pretty uncommon, and where she was born, which, in terms of trying to find family, can actually get you surprisingly far, I've come to realize. I've always had a slight hatred for the internet because I never had any choice in my life being public knowledge. And I know that once something is out there, it's out there. But for the first time, I'm actually really grateful for the internet. I was able to find some information on my mother's side of the family, and specifically was able to find my grandma's Facebook account, though it did take me some effort. After a lot of stressing on how to approach messaging her, if I even should, as well as potential outcomes, I messaged her explaining my mom's life, who I was, and my situation. I won't go into details on why my grandma and my mom are no contact, because that is not my story to share. But my grandma was appalled that she has a granddaughter she didn't even know about, and even more so, the way in which her daughter raised me. I found out I have an aunt and an uncle, both of whom my grandma told about me and my situation. I've been in pretty much constant contact with all of them since, just learning about each other. All of them want to help me get out of this living situation with my parents, and luckily, with me being 18 now, it's actually possible. Again, I don't feel entirely comfortable going into details, but I have arrangements to go stay with my aunt, who lives in a big city on the West Coast that has a lot of potential opportunities for me to start college or whatever I see fit, which I do plan on figuring out college. Happy to announce. My uncle has kids, but my aunt lives on her own and has a spare bedroom, which she has no problem letting me stay in for as long as necessary. I have a train ticket scheduled and purchased by my aunt and enough money to get to the station. I'm talking with my family currently and trying to plan out the details like how or if I'm going to tell my parents. My mom doesn't know any information on where any of her family lives, so even if I were to tell my parents who I'm going to live with, they wouldn't know where I was specifically. Someone pointed out that if I did leave without telling them, I should leave a note or some form of proof that I left willingly. If I opt out of a conversation, I'm planning on either leaving a note or filming a video explaining my plans and why I'm leaving, which would be kind of ironic, wouldn't it? Regarding my mom filming, I've been very quiet around my parents and just refusing to talk when the camera is on, but neither one of them has mentioned it yet so far, luckily. Also, speaking of my mom's content, I would like to very much emphasize something quickly. Almost everyone was genuinely trying to help, but I had a few people replying trying to guess who I was. Luckily, the few I saw were basically torn to shreds and ended up deleting their comments. I also had a few people who messaged me privately trying to make a guess at who I am, which at least that's not public, I guess. Although I can understand being curious, I posted anonymously with very little personal information for a reason. As I stated in my previous post, I have gotten enough attention and I'm very much sick of it. I would very much appreciate it if you guys can respect that. Even if you think you might know who I am, please, 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 don't make public guesses and understand that I don't want this to be even more public information tied to my name. Very long story short, I have set plans to leave as well as a safe place to go with my aunt once I do, and I very much appreciate some people for being so willing to help. If you had told me not even 2 weeks ago that not only would I have a plan to move away from my parents, but contact with family members I didn't even know existed, I don't think I would have believed it. I'm currently not planning on making another post updating this, but wanted to let anyone who was concerned about me know not to worry. Genuinely, thank you. Now for some comments. A commenter advised being careful since I don't really know my mom's family. I replied that I absolutely will be. Why my mom isn't in contact with them makes total sense, and none of it was their fault. Plus, they were able to send me evidence of that. Despite that, I definitely don't know them personally yet. My train out isn't scheduled immediately or anything, and I'm going to continue talking with them until then, but they do seem to be genuinely concerned and trustworthy. Plus, my aunt, who I'll be staying with, seems super nice, and we've already figured out that we have certain things in common. Later, I added that I'm planning on going to college because that's a more obtainable option for me now, and I'm hoping to figure out living in dorms. So realistically, I won't be staying with my aunt for that long once I work that out. Another commenter suggested asking my mother why she stopped communicating with them without telling her I started and getting her side of the story. I explained that my mom 100% refuses to talk about her family. That's the reason I didn't have any contact with them in the first place and didn't even know about my aunt and uncle. But I'm confident they are being truthful about it because I was literally shown proof, and some of it was literally court-ordered. Someone else advised against making a video, suggesting my parents might use it for content and recommended writing a note instead. I agreed that I realistically don't plan on filming a video. I think I was just feeling petty and upset thinking about it all, which just led to thinking about drastic ideas of what I should do for telling my parents. A video definitely isn't a good idea if I don't just tell them myself. To a downvoted commenter, I mentioned that I've seen the Harry Potter movie scene where his room is under the stairs and thought, wow, he actually has enough room to sit up in bed and a door. I've thought that multiple times, actually. I'm very willing to abandon them to not have to feel like that anymore. Another commenter suggested calling the local police or sheriff's station on a non-emergency number, asking for the community liaison officer, and explaining that I am 18, leaving a family situation that is not healthy, and going to stay with a relative I have not previously met. They suggested giving the officer my contact info and asking for a wellness check in a couple of weeks. They also recommended agreeing on 2 innocent code words for wellness checks. One meaning something is wrong, please get me out of here, and the other meaning everything is just fine at present. I thought that was a really good idea and thanked them. Now for the 2-month update. Hello, it's been a while, and I wanted to check in here to hopefully give a few people some peace of mind. In my last update, I explained that I had gotten in contact with my mother's side of the family and had a place to stay. I can proudly announce that I did it and am in a safe place now, totally away from my parents, with absolutely zero contact. My aunt is an absolute angel, truly. She's so kind, and that's not even including my grandma and uncle. When I first got here, my aunt, as well as my grandma, took me out on a little shopping spree, bought me clothes, decor, and furniture for my room, because I have one of those now, and honestly, anything they thought I would need. My uncle has introduced me to my cousins. He has a younger son and a daughter who's very close in age to me, and I would say that we have become friends. I've been able to go out and do a lot of fun little things with her. My aunt is currently helping me research colleges near us, but has reassured me I can do everything at my own pace, and there really is no rush, that her home will always have a spot for me. My aunt, in general, is such a cool person. She's someone I very quickly have started to look up to and have gotten close to. The more time we spend together, the more we learn that we actually have a lot in common. I'm just so grateful to all of them for being here and being so supportive. My aunt is also really helping me figure out who I am as an individual. For the first time, I'm in charge of my identity, what I share, and who I share it with. I dyed and cut my hair, got a nickname, and have been exclusively going by it. My cousin is currently on a journey to help me learn about what makeup I like. She's also introducing me to her favorite music groups as a self-proclaimed cringe but free K-pop fan. I have an entirely private Instagram account with all of 5 followers, and I plan on keeping it that way. I just feel like a normal teenage girl for once, and I've never felt happier. When I look in the mirror or just think about my life in general, I'm actually happy with it. I guess I never realized that I wasn't comfortable in my identity as a person because honestly, I had bigger things to worry about. This is all more than I could have ever imagined, and honestly, I have a hard time even processing it sometimes. I am officially in therapy though, so maybe I can start working on that as well as processing my past and how it plays into my identity in the future. My new therapist is actually part of the reason I'm making this update. She thinks that posting this could be a good way to get closure to a certain extent, as sort of a way of acknowledging what I went through, but also moving on into my new life because I have my whole future ahead of me, one that I am very excited to experience. So keeping that in mind, this will be my final update here. I want to be able to enjoy my life and future while keeping my privacy. A lot of people really wanted me to share my story more, expose my past, but at least for now, I've decided against that. It's my story, and I can choose to share it or not. For once, I have control over who gets to know what information about me, and I'm not willing to give that up yet, but I suppose I don't know what the future holds. So I'm asking as nicely as possible that people please respect that. I absolutely appreciate the support and advice so many have given me, and just know I'm safe. I can honestly say that I'm happy, I'm planning out my future, what I want to do with my life, and who I am besides just a persona on camera. So thank you so much for everything, and goodbye.